Greetings, salutations. How are you? My name is Jake Query. That is Derek Schultz. It's the incredibly creatively and appropriately named, while stoically faced Derek Schultz, Query and Schultz program here on ISC Sports Network. You're just sitting.
Why do you always point out my face? It's just my face. No, that's not what I do.
It's very similar.
I just smile. I kind of give the nod, like the dad nod. You know, like when you're passing somebody on the sidewalk.
It's a nice dad shirt.
It's a checkered flag shirt.
That's
right?
a checkered flag
Month
shirt?
Of May.
It looks more like a Bob Evans shirt.
The closest thing to a checkered flag shirt that I have. You're wearing an Indy 500 shirt.
That's right, from the shop in Indy.
Yeah. I wanted to be festive because it's May.
Fair enough. It is May. It is festive. And while we have the NFL draft to get to, we have the Pacers to get to, we are recording this on a Monday and literally within the last couple of hours since we are taping this. So our apologies for the weird, flux capacitor in terms of time there. But we begin with sad news, Derek, that 87-year-old, one of the true colorful personalities in the history of the Indianapolis 500 here as we begin the month of May, one of two men to win the Indy 500 in 3 different decades, the first to do so, the 68, 75, and 81 winner, and then a TV personality that I think is another way in which a lot of people know, but Bobby Unser passing away at the age of 87.
Yeah, Uncle Bobby, right?
That's right.
One of the most, I would say, beloved figures in
agree.
Indianapolis lore. And I said this on Twitter, but it really is true. You say somebody is one of a kind, right, when they pass away. Bobby Unser was one of a kind. There will never be another Bobby Unser. I feel like I had a bit of a loose personal connection with him because I was close to some people who were really close to him. You remember, you've mentioned this on the show, our Coke Lot campout, across the street in the gated community of the Coke Lot. One of the big highlights of that was usually on Saturday, they would bring a golf car over with Bobby, and he would come over while everybody was doing whatever they were doing, drinking lime-a-ritas or whatever else.
I remember.
And Bobby would just kind of sit and watch the shenanigans go on and take photos and whatever else, and could not have been a nicer guy.
I remember you telling me one year, Derek, it would have been probably 2014, I'm going to guess, 2015, somewhere in there. And I went down to Georgetown Road the night before the 500. I always like to just walk around and take in all the campers and the ambiance,
Sure.
at dusk. And you texted me and said, I'm in the Coke Lot, and then it was across the street behind a fence.
In the gated community of the Coke Lot, yes. That's
Okay.
what we like to call it.
And you're like, Bobby Unser's here. And I'm like, no, Bobby Unser is not hanging out in the Coke Lot, even in the gated community of the Coke Lot. There's literally no way Bobby Unser's there. And sure enough, I shouldn't have doubted you.
Yep.
We come walking up, and there was Bobby Unser, and he was in like a cart, like a golf cart. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, he's sitting there, and people are lining up and, like, taking pictures, and some of them more risque than others. And he's just like, literally, okay, let's take another photo.
Yeah.
I just love the fans of the 500.
I mean, it happens. When you have a VIP campout, VIPs show up to the campout.
Which is why I was there.
Well, I kind of asked you kind of as a throwaway to come in. I had to ask permission to get you in there. So you're welcome, A.
Okay.
Bobby didn't need any permission to get in there.
Look, kidding aside, Derek, the Indianapolis 500 in its glory days, and I'm not saying that it's not still great, but let's face it. I mean, the reality in terms of the zenith of the breakthrough transcendence of the Indianapolis 500, the stars that helped catapult it into the American culture were A.J. Foyt, Mario Andretti, and the Unsers. And Bobby Unser being the oldest of the Unsers, at least of the Unsers that won between he and Al and Little Al. And, all the way to, back in the day, drivers would represent the community in which they grew up in terms of racing. And so it was like the NCAA tournament. What happens in the NCAA tournament, people say, well, I'm an Indiana fan, but they're out of it, so I root for the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. Back in those days, people would root for, the Unsers were huge out of not only Albuquerque, but Bobby Unser actually was born in Colorado. But he was the Pikes Peak champion, so people in the mountainous regions, they watched the Indianapolis 500, and they were represented by the Unsers. They were represented by Bobby Unser. And then when he transcended that popularity into television and became, a lot of people know him as the guy that was constantly arguing with Sam Posey.
Yeah, the broadcaster Bobby Unser.
Correct. boy, he comes through here and he is flat out. Sounding really good. I mean, just he had such a unique way of speaking, but I just think that he was, the name Uncle Bobby just came about because Al Unser Jr. would refer to him as Uncle Bobby. Well, he was everybody's uncle, right?
Yeah.
I mean, anybody, you thought of him as your uncle. I remember years ago, I had talked to a mutual friend of ours, Steve Shunk, who was very close with Bobby Unser, and I offer my condolences to Steve because I know what Bobby Unser means to Steve Shunk. But I had mentioned to Steve Shunk that I said, man, I would love to meet or talk to Bobby Unser at some point. And so he said, well, you should just call him. I said, well, I don't know him. I've never met him. I don't have his phone number. And he said, oh, I'll give you his phone number. And I said, yeah, but what am I going to say? Like, Steve gave me your phone number to call. And he said, oh, no. He's in the phone book. I just love when people call to talk about racing. So this was back in the days of phone books and directory assistants.
Sure, yeah.
So I call, and Bobby Unser answers the phone. And I said, hi, Bobby. My name is Jake Query. And I'm
a huge Indianapolis 500 fan.
Right. Literally. Well, what years did you attend a race? Well, my first race was 1981. Oh, that's a wonderful year for your first 500. That was my final. And, in that year, let me tell you, I didn't do anything to – and, I mean, he's off and running.
Mm-hmm.
Derek, I was on the phone with him for 2.5 hours.
Wow.
And I talked for like 6 minutes.
Yeah.
It was the greatest.
Like the Bill Walton of racing.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Perfectly said.
Where you just let him go. On and on and on.
He led a great life of 87 years, and it was one that during his journey and during every turn of it, which were scintillating, all of them, we were fortunate enough to be along for the ride. So Godspeed to the legend, 3-time winner, Bobby Unser. The NFL draft is complete, Derek. The Colts have made their picks, and that means that everybody has to freak out over the fact that they did not take the 6th-round guy that's going to eventually be a special teams punt team gunner that they think they should.
Yeah, honestly, Jake, in my expert opinion, I give them a C- for their draft. I don't think that the athletes they got were twitchy enough, and don't feel like they used their draft capital very well.
Yeah, you didn't like – they don't. Some of those guys just don't have enough movement out of their hips.
Yeah, I agree.
Burst.
Bad hips.
I like burst.
Bad hips. Mm-hmm.
I think you like the fact that just before the Colts were on the clock, I don't know, probably 20 minutes before they drafted, I simply sent a tweet because I don't – open disclaimer. I know that people that watch this were hoping – I don't get into the draft board. Well, the board's going exactly as I projected and that kind of a thing. I understand that people do. That's cool. It's not my cup of tea. But I simply sent a thing that said, I have not analyzed this and broken it down and looked at where teams drafted and who's available and whatever else. I just think they're going to take that defensive dude from Michigan.
Yeah. You know his name, right? It's kwity Paye. He has a name.
Is he a dude?
He is. Yes, he is male. Yes, as are all of the picks of the NFL
Derek,
draft.
There are certain guys in football you're like, man, that guy's just a dude. He is a defensive dude from Michigan. Look at him. That's a defensive dude right there.
Good guess with that. But it ended up working out for the Colts because we talked about how, as much as we spent on left tackle, we all know that this team needed pass rushers. And to a lot of people who are way smarter than me and way smarter than us and looked at this far deeper than either of us did, kwity Paye was their number one edge player in this draft. So even though this wasn't looked at as a great edge class, kwity Paye arguably was the best of that class, and the Colts added that.
By the way, when you say much smarter than us, and then you correct yourself by saying much smarter than we, if you go with much smarter than we first, you don't have to correct yourself. And grammatically, much smarter than we is correct. So when you say much smarter than us, you're actually reinforcing the lack of smarts.
Okay. Well, while you're talking about that, you always do this whenever somebody passes. You always write Godspeed. It's one word.
I don't think it is.
It is. It's not God grant me speed. It's Godspeed.
I don't know.
It's Godspeed, just combined into one. So you spelled it right. It's just you always do two words.
You think it is two words?
That's like a big jQuery word, Godspeed.
Well, I think it's here's the thing. And I know that Godspeed is still theological, I guess, because you're incorporating God.
I don't ever look at it like that.
But God is all encompassing. I'm always uncomfortable when someone passes of instilling and I know people are this is probably gonna like set off lightning rods here. I'm always uncomfortable when people pass of instilling too much religion on it because I don't know what their religious beliefs are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Putting yourself and what you believe into what.
Do I
they
use
might
it
have
as two
believed.
words? Maybe that's autocorrect. Everybody blames everything on autocorrect. Maybe it's autocorrect.
I don't think it's autocorrect. I think it's happened too often to be just autocorrect. But it's no big deal. I mean, I think it didn't it come from the space program? Like, wasn't that a big thing? with
Godspeed, John
astronauts?
Glenn, right?
Yeah, the astronauts and all of
Right.
that. I mean, I think that's where it kind of became a thing that people said. And we're really dating ourselves now. Didn't that come with a space program? You know, our younger audience watches the show like, space program? The hell are you talking about?
Were you surprised the Colts took a quarterback late?
Not
They've done that in the past.
necessarily.
Remember Chandler Harnish? I mean, they've taken quarterbacks late before.
Not necessarily. I think they wanted to get somebody to come in and push Eason and just, I don't know, see what they had there. I thought it was interesting, Jake, of how they treated this draft class because say what you want about best player available and all that jazz. The Colts kind of treated this like, hey, we're going to take a flyer on a couple. And I know the draft is kind of flyers anyway. But, hey, we're going to take a couple of flyers on some guys that we hope will be good down the line. And I'm thinking to myself, well, isn't your window right now?
I agree with that. Here's what I think. This draft could, I'm not saying will, could potentially be the watershed draft in the perceptions of Chris Ballard. Everything Chris Ballard did up until a week ago, well, I trust Chris Ballard. Chris Ballard has a lot of benefit that invariably and inevitably he's going to be compared against Ryan Grigson, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chris Ballard's a good-looking dude. He's got good hair. He speaks with a little bit of a southern drawl. He wears nice sweaters. He always has a cup of coffee. Looks very in charge, very authoritative, like a calm demeanor about him. So you think to yourself, like, this guy's just got it figured out.
Mm-hmm.
And he's kind of gotten a pass.
Oh, he's got a huge pass.
I mean,
Yeah.
trust the process. You know, he knows what he's doing. He's starting from the ground up. Okay, but I mean, how long do you get?
Yeah, and
while
the
that's while you're
excuses
still
are
into that?
now that we've kind of run the mill with the quarterback stuff, the excuses are over.
So, because this is the first time that I can think that Chris Ballard bypassed on what most people assumed was an obvious, a glaring need for the Colts is left tackle. By not drafting a left tackle, Chris Ballard better hope that they don't have a left tackle issue. Because if they do, the perception of him is going to turn, and it's going to turn because of this draft.
Yeah, everyone
This
will
is
pounce on it.
Correct.
Yeah, because I'm not surprised that they used pick 21 on Paye. Like, that didn't surprise me. I'm shocked that they didn't draft a single tackle. I mean, not only did you not get a left tackle, you didn't even draft anybody to even potentially compete for a depth spot. And I don't know if they think Sam Tevye is that guy. There was a run on tackles right before their second-round pick, but still, you got to be aggressive. We've seen Ballard be aggressive before and trade up. He did that with Tyquan Lewis. He did that with Jonathan Taylor. When they really like somebody, they go and get them, and they didn't do that. So I'm not one of those people, Jacob. We talked about this on last week's show. I don't think you need elite players at every spot. Like, people, because of Andrew Luck PTSD, are like, oh my God, like, the offensive line, it's the most important thing. It's important, but you have a great group around whoever your left tackle is. If you could just get competent to average play,
and maybe
at
that's
left
what
tackle,
he's
you'll be
thinking.
fine.
Maybe that's what he's thinking.
The problem is Chaz Green is not competent or average. You know what I mean? Like, some of these guys that they've put in there have been players that don't belong on an NFL field. And that's what you have to avoid, because Tevye, you know, statistically, if you take PFF and all that stuff into account, did not grade very well. There's a reason why he was available for the Colts.
Yeah, so like I said, because everybody had this is the first year where there was such a strong assumption of a glaring need, and the Colts didn't address it. And that is not because Chris Ballard thinks he's smarter than everybody else and wants to be, you know, some sort of, you know, like iconoclast, but it's going to be billed that way if it doesn't work out for him.
Yeah. And Odengbo was viewed as, you know, whether or not they had a first-round grade on him, great, because if he plays at all, he's not going to play until later in the season, was viewed as a luxury pick for a lot of people, because they're like, wait a minute, you're using this pick on a guy that he's not going to be able to help you this year. He might not be able to help you even in 2022.
I get a little bit tired of, You know, he would have been a first-round talent if not for the injury. Okay? I mean, I would have been a Stanford student if not for the GPA.
Yeah, I hear you. Even though Achilles, 10, 15 years ago, that used to be a career-ending or altering injury. Now guys bounce back from that all the time.
I get it, but you still don't know at what rate. What do we have to get to today?
Much more on the NFL draft.
Okay.
Did you see any – I know you were in Texas, so you might have been – whatever, in the clouds. But did you see anything?
No, I was in Texas.
Did you see what ended up happening with the Pacers in that game the other night against Oklahoma City? I mean, we have to mention it. It's incredible.
Right.
It's an historic beatdown, what they did to the Thunder. So we'll talk about that. More Bobby Unser memories. Obviously, you brought this memento here that I want to talk about, and just that era of cars. Wasn't it great? I mean, look how sleek that bad boy is.
The wheels spin.
Really, really nice. We've got all of our features as well. It's the month of May, so American Dairy Association Indiana, we're excited about that and doing their Rookie of the Year luncheon coming up in a couple of weeks.
Fastest rookie luncheon.
And the shop and Chateau and everybody else on board with us once again for the month of May. You keep thinking that, all the sponsors are going to drop because people don't like me and the shirts that I wear on the show. None of that is true. If anything, the shirts have enhanced, I think.
Can we get Bob Evans now?
Has enhanced. I can't remember the last time I was in a Bob Evans.
Yeah, probably because you're worried they're going to find out you stole their table.
Bob Evans, we didn't have Bob Evans in Connecticut, so when we come out, like my sisters and I'd be like,
treat.
Cool, Bob Evans, sweet. And now you're like, Bob Evans.
Okay.
No thanks. I'll pass on that.
If that was red, it would be a Bob Evans table.
Well, I was a little bit worried because this is a little more lippy than I like. Like I like to give people a peek. Like I like to tease. I don't want to give away the whole thing. You know what I mean? So I'm worried that does this shirt give it away a little bit too much? Because I want to be just revealing enough.
Most people wear the sweater over the shirt,
tempt.
just so you know.
You're just jealous that you don't have – yours is all like – because I've, unfortunately, we've stayed in hotels together, so I've seen Jake shirtless and the back and everything like that. You're just jealous that you don't have this proud –
I don't care whether it's one word or two. We're going to say Godspeed to the chest hair segment, and we will return to Query and Schultz here on ISC Sports Network.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
You can't get enough of them.
You can't get enough of us. Good one, J-Man.
This is the worst scandal. This might
This
even
is
be...
worse than steroid. Not so fast.
Are you going to watch the XFL?
I'll probably watch a little bit of it.
You want to go through and pick some games?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I really don't.
Indiana dairy farmers provide us with safe, pure foods for our tables. A responsibility that takes intuition, resolve, and determination to make sure their milk is good for you and delicious to taste. Their connection with our community runs deep, passed down through the generations, ensuring that milk is always available at your store. It's not easy being a dairy farmer, but the rewards have special meaning when you can feed Indiana's families every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
You're watching Query and Schultz on the ISC Sports Network.
Oh my God! We are ripping fast today. And how hard can it be, right? These are now selling for about $3,500. So we're back to our old ways of pulling rocks.
Act like idiots on camera, open cards, and talk about the hobby.
Derek, you had mentioned that we are fortunate enough to be able to MC once again the American Dairy Association of Indiana Fastest Rookie Luncheon coming up after qualifying for the Indy 500. But speaking of the American Dairy Association and Winners Drink Milk, since we have here, now this is actually the 1973 Olsenite Eagle that Bobby Unser drove. He won, of course, in 68, 75, and 81, but this is one of his kind of signature cars.
But did not actually win the 500 in that.
He did not win in this exact car, but he won in car 48. This is car 6. But still, as a tribute to Bobby, 3 times he took the swig of milk. Literally. Sweetie, I tell you, I just love the taste of the cold milk.
I miss that voice for sure.
Bobby Unser, one of the all-time legends. At any rate, so we have other things to get to. You had mentioned the Pacers. You seem very excited about the Pacers suddenly finding lightning in a bottle, right?
Well, I just
Speaking of
thought
bottles.
that, you mentioned Lightning. It was against the Oklahoma City Thunder, so that segues nicely. But,
Al Unser won in the Johnny Lightning.
Oh, yeah? I
Anyway.
thought that was Johnny Rutherford. Am I wrong about that? Was that the Yellow Submarine?
That he did win in the Yellow
Okay.
Submarine, correct?
Okay. Yeah, we'll get more. It's the month of May, so I don't want to,
Fair enough.
ruin everything now. I want to hold all this stuff out for great content. The Pacers, they play a game against a Thunder team that's completely quit, right? And it's Saturday night. Who cares? Like, I wasn't going to spend 1 second tuning in. Not that I can even tune in because I have Hulu, and of course Pacers games aren't on there. But that's maybe a topic for another show. But what they did to the Thunder, like I saw the halftime score on Twitter, and it was like 86-42, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God. And then it just got worse from there. They set the NBA record, Jake, and take this maybe with a grain of salt because road doesn't really exist in this COVID year in the
Correct.
NBA.
That's fair.
The largest margin of victory on the road in NBA history. At one point, I believe it was a 62-point lead at one point. 57 points was the final. I mean, to win an NBA game by 57 points. Like, it's not college, you know what I mean? It's not Indiana
Right.
playing, Loyola Christian Academy, whatever. NBA, the gap usually isn't that wide. So to see them do what they did, to just completely dismember the Thunder like that is crazy. It was the ragdolling of all ragdolls.
Ragdolling of all ragdolls.
Just completely dirt rolled them.
Dirt rolled?
Curb stomped.
I've never heard dirt rolled.
Yeah.
Is that a new one from you?
Yeah.
Did you
Newish.
take
Newish.
Did you take a jargon class at WGU?
I don't have to take classes. It's all up here.
Well, if you did have to take classes, Derek,
I would take it at WGU.
you would take it at
Indiana.
WGU,
That's right.
WGU.edu. As a matter of fact, WGU is Indiana's largest online accredited university. That is correct, whether or not you are deciding to venture into your secondary education or perhaps maybe simply wanting to finish because life got in the way when you had some credits from a degree. WGU is the place for you. WGU Indiana, that's WGU.edu/Indiana or simply WGU.edu. You can find out about all of the expansive classes they have where ambition never rests because you can make your own schedule. It's what Derek's wife did when she needed to finish her nursing certification, correct?
That's right. Yep.
Excellent.
And hopefully Sage never comes back in studio, but we'll see
Sage
about
is
that.
the best.
152-95 was the final score, and the Thunder closed on a 13-3 run just to make it
Sage right
look like that, 152-95. Couple of other records, Jake. Pacers franchise record for total points, 152. Mark Monteith had the stat they scored 150 in like 1982, one of their really terrible teams.
Right. I thought 152 was actually the more impressive thing to me than
for
the scoring
Pacers,
margin.
for sure. And 21 three-pointers, which doesn't sound like much, but the Pacers, I think coming into this season, had never had 20 threes in a game. But 21 three-pointers for the Pacers
And how about-
against the Thunder.
How about Domas Sabonis getting a triple-double in the first half?
Yeah, insane. First time in 25 years that's happened in an NBA game. A 20-plus point triple-double in the first half.
You know, the real challenge for Indiana in this offseason, and it's been a challenge for them for a couple years now, and that is assessing exactly how you use Sabonis and Turner together. And I feel like that decision is going to be made and that one of the two of them is going to be moved. And I actually think what's the pickle for them, they're both great players. And I don't think that and I think they're great players that enjoy playing with each other. I mean, I don't think that there's an issue there personality-wise. But in terms of the way they play and what they need to do, I mean, so much offensively for Sabonis. You know, Sabonis has to have the ball going through him. And then defensively, Turner is such a good rim protector and does things that Turner might have the more coveted skill set league-wide, truth be told. That's nothing against Sabonis, who's a wonderful player.
That's what I've argued.
But
Yeah.
right.
Turner's
I
a better fit in more places than Sabonis is.
Turner is more of the anomaly. So in other words, if you were a shoe salesman, okay?
Yes, very, very topical and current.
It is. Like basketball shoes, they're always
Are
popular.
there shoe salesmen anymore?
I'm saying like a shoe store or shoe website, whatever it might be.
I thought you meant like door to door.
Sabonis might be the more hip, cool, current shoe, but they're a lot like him. There's a lot like the shoe that that came out, whereas Turner is more of a shoe that you can wear like to play basketball, but also like to go to the club or what. It's more versatile, and so therefore it's more specified, and there are more people that may say that's actually what I want because the other one I've got 3 different pair like.
Well, the second one is what I would go with your analogy is that Turner, you could play tennis in that sneaker or basketball or
Correct.
baseball. In
Correct.
a Domas shoe, you can only play basketball. That's
Correct.
the only thing that you can play. Because
I mean, but
he's just a little more pigeonholed into who he is.
he is. But my point being, I think that Turner, what Turner brings to the table in terms of his rim blocking and everything else, there are just fewer of him.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, he would be
And
more
you
coveted.
can airdrop him, like I said, I think I said this on last week's show, you can airdrop him on just about any NBA roster and he can hit the ground running. They'll figure out a way for him to
Right.
fit immediately.
So anyway, long-winded, what I'm getting at is that they bring equal value to a team, but one of them, the value that they bring is coveted by more teams, has a bigger trade value. And they've got to decide which of the two, because I think that Sabonis, offensively speaking, is playing in a way that hinders a little bit, that kind of slows things down for what other players on the floor want or can do. So it wouldn't surprise me if Sabonis is the one they try to trade or decide that they'd like to trade, except for that, Turner is the one that has the bigger trade value.
I wonder if they'll just dangle both of them out there and see who returns a better
That's
package,
possible.
honestly, because I'm like you, Jake, and I think a lot of Pacers fans feel this way. It's time to move on. You can't run it back with this team. You know, Pacers can say all they want. Well, we got to wait till they're healthy. Got to wait till they're healthy. I'm tired of waiting. You know what I mean? Like, you can't run back this group together. I mean, I think this group together, even healthy, has a clearly defined ceiling. So splitting up Sabonis and Turner and shaking some things up for next year, I think, is the way to go.
Do you know what I think is their ceiling and their issue? And I know it's early, and so it's unfair perhaps to say, but I have a feeling it's going to turn out to be true. They hired the wrong coach.
Maybe, but you know what?
I don't think he's a good coach.
You can't – it doesn't matter who the coach is. If you don't have a guy, you're not going anywhere.
No, but Derek, but when you have stretches where you have 5 guys on the floor and you're like, who is their designated
Look,
scorer?
yeah,
what is with this rotation?
Look,
Why are
100%.
we – I mean –
I'm not going to disagree with you that Bjorkgren looks like he's in over his head, and this year they've underachieved, which they never did under Nate McMillan. Say what
Correct.
you want about Nate McMillan. Those teams never underachieved.
Correct.
Yeah, they flopped in the playoffs, sure, but during the course of the season, they always either achieved or overachieved based on expectations. This team, healthy or not, has underachieved this year. But my point is, if we're taking the long view on this thing, the Pacers can't be a title contender unless you have an elite-level player, and they don't have one. They have a couple of good players, and a couple of those guys I think you can categorize as very good, but it doesn't matter.
I think they have an elite-level player in Domas Sabonis. I think, unfortunately, he is elite at a position where no longer is that a position where an elite player lifts you.
That's probably fair, but you know,
I mean,
by
look
elite,
at-
I mean
when is-
one of the 12 to 15 best players in the league.
Okay, and what I'm saying to you is, of the last 30 years, how many NBA teams won a title by riding the back of a low-post player? 1?
Who
2?
are you thinking of, Hakeem and the Rockets?
Correct. That's
I mean,
one.
I would argue, and I know that
Shaq.
I know he had Kobe. Shaquille O'Neal was the most dominant force in
Shaq-
the NBA.
Shaq indisputably
in the
would be 2.
2000s. Yeah.
So that's it, right? And we're talking about generational 7-foot talents.
I mean, what do you Duncan
Oh, yeah, well,
and the
okay.
Spurs? I mean, they had a great core, but certainly the '99 team.
But it is more often somebody, especially in today's game, somebody where the ball is going through their hands on every single possession, and they are the one facilitating.
To be fair to you, 30 years is extending into the area of dominant centers. You know what I mean? If we
Right.
did 15 years, it would be much harder to name teams that
Right.
did that.
So that to your point, I don't know that it's that they don't have elite players. They don't have elite players at the position where you need them to be elite.
It just stinks because even Portland has an elite player in Damian Lillard, and even they can't get over. They can't even get to the finals. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so it's just so difficult. In today's NBA, really, you need 2 of those guys. And the Pacers have trouble finding one, and when they come close to having one, that guy decides he doesn't want to be here anymore.
Who's going to win the East?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I don't even know who I would bet on today to win the East.
It's got to be Brooklyn, right?
You would think that they can just kind of flip that switch on, I guess. I mean, they've got such an embarrassment of riches that would be a huge disappointment if they weren't to do it.
If we were still in the era of best of 5 or best of 3 in the first round, maybe somebody has a chance. But in a best of 7, even if you only have one of those 3 guys, okay, listen, this round, James Harden, we need you to just go out and get 50. Okay, fine. I'll win 4 games. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's going to be really, really difficult in a series for anybody to beat them. But you never know, Jake, when the drama and creeps in and, Kyrie's kind of always a wild card.
He is.
I mean, I'm kind of reaching here to –
Who's going to win the West?
I'm trying to find reasons to think that they're not going to be able to do it. But, that group of teams that's right at the top, there's been a clear separation all year because Boston's fallen off. Remember, Boston the last couple of years has been in that top 4, but there's been this clear separation between – oh, wow, Philly's actually the 1 seed right now. I didn't know that. Philly they're a half game up on Brooklyn, and then Milwaukee, and then everybody else. Because then you get down to the Knicks. Great story, but come on. The Knicks aren't touching any of those teams in a playoff series. That's another one because, the Lakers have fallen off. The Clippers, I think pound for pound would still probably be the favorite.
Did you see that?
Just because we haven't really seen it with Phoenix and Denver and the injury situation. I'm fascinated to see how it goes. This kind of reminds me of the bubble last year where it was anybody's game, and you had the Lakers rise to the top. But remember, nobody would have thought that the Heat would put together the run that they did, and I think we could be heading for that again somewhere. Probably not in the East.
If LeBron James stays healthy, which he says himself, he's like, look, I'm at the age now, I'm never going to be 100% healthy. If LeBron's able to play and Anthony Davis is playing at a high level, LA wins the West.
You think? I'm not as confident as you on that.
I'll say LA wins the West because if it's not the Lakers, I think the Clippers do.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
And nothing against the Jazz.
Caveat there.
Nothing against the Jazz, who've been unbelievable.
Or Phoenix, who's been really good, but we haven't seen it from those teams.
Phoenix has good young players. Devin Booker can flat out score.
Yeah.
Flat out score. We have stuff to get to still yet.
Well, we're going to talk more NFL drafts and get back into that. There's something interesting, I think, about what happened to the Bears. That when you play the game,
it's the Bears.
Yeah, you play the game. Hey, if we knew then what we know now, would you do this? That's always a good topic for like talk radio and podcasts, right?
Okay.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
It has to do with quarterbacks.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I don't know how to tease it any better than that, but you were in Texas and you're on short sleeve, so maybe you're not following with that. And we've got all of our features to get to as well.
Badge.
I don't want it. Our Winners Drink Milk Winner of the Week from American Dairy Association Indiana, the Shops Biter Bowlby,
okay,
and Love Heating and Cooling's Love That Play.
All right.
All that to get to. It's Corey and Schultz, IC Sports Network. Stick around.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
Welcome back. It's Corey and Schultz, ISC Sports Network. Thanks so much for joining us alongside Jay Query. I'm Derek Schultz. This portion of the show brought to you by my friends at Chateau Kitchens, the premier home remodeler in central Indiana.
Chateau?
No, just Chateau.
Chateau.
Yes. Oh, wait, you told that story about
Chateau Normandy?
Yeah, that's right. That ended up not
Chateau
going so
sounds
well.
better. Chateau Kitchens.
It does sound a lot better.
Looks better, too.
Premier provider of residential cabinetry as well. They came in and did my kitchen a couple of years ago. Stephen and Bob and Victoria and Ryan and the rest of that crew were amazing, taking us step by step with design ideas, and then their crews were all friendly and non-invasive, about as non-invasive as you can be. You know, it's a home remodel, right? So they're literally taking sledgehammers to your existing kitchen and putting everything up. But it was a great process, and the best thing that we ever did was choosing to remodel that kitchen and choosing to use Chateau Kitchens. So you can check them out on Instagram at Chateau Kitchens to see some of the before and after pictures, also on Facebook, Chateau Kitchens, and use them. We're going to use them for future projects as well. I don't know if Steven's watching right now, but we are planning on doing that.
You haven't told Steven this?
No, I haven't
He
said
probably
anything.
should know that.
They're coming up later on. Kind of like when the Colts pass rush prospects are going to hit. That's around when we're going to be using Chateau again.
You're not waiting.
So probably not this summer.
Steven
but
does not have an
we're coming
Achilles
in.
you're waiting for.
No,
though, right?
no.
Okay.
It's coming soon.
You mentioned you want to get back into the NFL draft and the Chicago Bears.
Well, I found it interesting, and again, we can only go on what we knew then, but obviously the Colts acquired Carson Wentz via trade, and they did so with a conditional first-round pick. It's going to end up being a 1, and this year's second-round pick, right? Or, sorry, third-round pick. So 1 and a 3 for Carson Wentz. The Bears, let me make sure that I gave this up, traded up with the Giants to 11, so the Bears were at 20, traded up to the Giants for 11, and they gave up next year's first-round pick plus a 4 and a 5. So essentially kind of the same package, a 1, 4, and a 5 versus a 1 and a 3, essentially. If you would have known back in February, because remember the narrative was, and I bought into this, Colts are picking 21. They don't have enough draft capital to trade up to get an elite quarterback, because I'm thinking to myself, well, Fields is going to go 2 or 3. I'm not thinking he's going to fall to 11. Knowing what we know now, who would you rather have with that trade package? Would you rather have Carson Wentz or would you rather have Justin Fields?
If I'm the Colts, I'd rather have Carson Wentz.
Because you at least have something to go on there NFL experience-wise?
Because the Colts are ready right now. And Justin Fields, who I think is a wonderful talent, don't get me wrong, but so taking Justin Fields out of it, the reality is that for most, and I realize Carson Wentz would be an anomaly here, but you want to give a young quarterback time, a couple of years. The Colts have been like 2 to 3 years away now for like 5 years.
Yeah, you're right.
It's pushing
it's
time.
Frustrating. Yep.
Theoretically, the Colts are a high-powered flashlight that they've been waiting for the batteries that weren't included, and so they need the battery that's ready to go right now, and that's Carson Wentz. They are hoping is that guy, and that he is the piece. If you get a Fields in there, then theoretically you're waiting, a year or 2 or 3 before that really blossoms, and then you go. I mean, I think Fields is a good player. Were you surprised that San Francisco went as they did?
No, because it's pretty intoxicating the potential upside of somebody like Trey Lance. So I can understand why they felt like they wanted to. Not that Fields doesn't have upside. I think Fields does. I think if you would ask 10 different NFL GMs to rank the 5 quarterbacks, let's say 4. Let's take Mac Jones out of it, because I think Mac Jones, to me personally, was a distant 5th. You say all you want about, he's smart and he's accurate. He had the 2 best receiver prospects on his were first-round picks on his same team, and a first-round pick running back. I mean, he was loaded. Not that Justin Fields didn't have talent, or these other guys, Trevor Lawrence, didn't have talent around them, but come on. I mean,
there's always, Derek.
He's really accurate. All you have to do is get in the vicinity of those guys.
Every year there is a quarterback that is taken high that they say, he's got all the intangibles. He's got length. He's got good hand size. He's got great vision. Didn't play in a lot of games, but, boy, he shows everything. Paxton Lynch.
Yeah. Memphis, right?
Correct.
I think that's where he went.
Daniel Jones with the Giants.
In a way, yeah.
He was up. But what I'm saying is, maybe I should rephrase this. There are guys every year. Every draft has guys that you hadn't really heard of until 6 weeks before the draft.
Okay. Well, Ryan Mallett.
And then they're skyrocketing, right? And it's like, oh man, they've really tested well. And some of them work out. Some of them. Ryan Tannehill was that guy, and in his first stop, it did not work out.
Yeah.
And now you see, like, okay, he's a pretty good player, but his NFL experience is what made him a good player. You had to wait on him, and I think the Colts are ready to just go now.
That's fair. I would take Fields because of the upside. I don't think Wentz. I think Wentz's upside is about Phillip Rivers' level of what he was last year. Maybe a little bit beyond that. Like I don't think this talk about him being an MVP and all that stuff.
But at least with Wentz, you have mobility.
Well, Fields, you have a mobility.
No, but I'm talking about Rivers. So you're going.
Oh
last
yeah,
year
for
with a more
sure.
mobile
Yeah,
quarterback.
I just meant like overall like tier of quarterback. Like Phillip Rivers was probably a top 10 quarterback last year, and on the back of the top 10. But I think that's around where Wentz can be.
Which of these quarterbacks is going to be the one? It always happens, unfortunately. Which of these quarterbacks is going to be the one that is not going to live up to it?
I think Lance is the best bet on that, just because he played. You know, you're talking about 1 year essentially. I mean, he was unbelievable in that 1 year, but that's really kind of what you're talking about with him. I would be really surprised, Jake, if Trevor Lawrence isn't at least like a Carson Palmer level player. I'd be shocked. Like, he may not be Peyton Manning,
Palmer.
Well, I think Trevor Lawrence is at least going to be a very good
He's
NFL
better
quarterback.
than Carson Palmer.
Jake, I'm talking about worst case scenario here.
But you come up with Carson Palmer?
That's a compliment. If your worst case scenario is
Okay.
Carson Palmer had a really nice career.
Yeah.
Drew Bledsoe? I'm trying to pick number one picks.
Okay.
I mean, what do you want me to say? Alex Smith? Because Alex Smith is below both of those guys, in my opinion.
That's fair.
Maybe Bledsoe's a little more arguable.
Number one picks that didn't win a ring, which is a lot of them, right?
Yeah, well, those three, right?
Yeah,
Oh, well, I guess Bledsoe technically was on the 0-1 Patriots, but
Right.
you
No,
don't,
I
don't
think-
really count that.
I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a special player.
Yeah.
But I'm biased.
No, I know you do. I mean, you thought the same thing about C.J. Spiller, so I know that's how you are with Clemson
I did not
guys,
say that about C.J. Spiller.
where everybody's like, "Oh my
Never
God!"
said
like,
that about
best
C.J.
next
Spiller.
Barry Sanders.
But Lawrence, you got to admit, I mean,
I'd be really, really surprised if he's not a multiple Pro Bowl, All-Pro, MVP candidate level player. You know what? Zach Wilson's got big bust potential too.
He does.
I mean, we
He
can't
does.
take him out. Good-looking kid. The first time I ever thought to myself, "Man, I'm getting really old," is Zach Wilson looks like he's getting ready to go to prom.
Right, you're right.
You know what I mean? Like I'm like, wait, this kid is eligible for the draft? And I know you feel that because you're 10 years older than me, so you probably
All the
were saying
time,
that,
yeah.
10 to 12 years ago. But this was the first NFL draft where I was like,
one
man.
thing about the Colts, the defensive dude from Michigan?
Yeah, Kwity Paye.
Yeah. You know the one thing that seemingly everyone overlooked, and I will admit, I did not watch the draft, so I didn't see. Okay, you saw the photo of him where he's got the James Dean picture in the background.
Yeah, you sent it. I sent it to my sister.
Was that his apartment?
Oh, I don't know.
He's got like a super high sport performance crotch rocket behind him.
Yeah.
I'm under the assumption that the Colts saw that in the photo and have it in his contract that he is never again stepping on that thing, right?
Well, I think basically the stock NFL contracts say no pickup basketball and no.
I would think, right?
No.
Remember,
danger,
was it
extreme
Robert
sports.
Edwards?
Yeah, beach flag football.
Yeah.
Tore up his knee with the Patriots. I mean, that was more of like a. It was like a charity thing, wasn't it?
Correct.
Yeah,
It was during
poor
the Pro
guy.
Bowl, I
Yeah,
think, right?
Yeah, but you've heard of guys getting. Well, Ben Roethlisberger got injured on a motorcycle, had a crash, and you've heard of guys
You're
getting
right.
injured pickup
Well,
basketball.
Jay Williams
as well.
is
Yeah.
from an NBA
course.
standpoint. By the way, it's time for our American Dairy Association Winners Drink Milk Winner of the Week. We do this each and every week. We select somebody who showed that they are a winner over the course of the week. American Dairy Association of Indiana, again, sponsoring the fastest rookie luncheon, which Derek and I will be honored to MC coming up after qualifying for the 105th Indianapolis 500-mile race. Derek, do you have the milk facts there? As I drink my chocolate
In
milk?
fact, I actually have some new milk facts because it's the month of May.
Oh, really? Okay.
So they've announced their
I didn't mean to
presenters.
choke you up there.
Sorry, it was so cold, so good milk. I have sensitive teeth. They announced their presenters for this year, and two people that we're very familiar with from
Do you
working with
use
them
that
last year.
sensitive teeth toothpaste?
No, I just use like straight white Colgate factory toothpaste. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Because I usually can get coupons for it. Jill Huian, who we had on with us, she's a great personality. Had on with us at the rookie luncheon last year when we did it with American Dairy Association Indiana. She's going to be in Victory Lane, as is Tim Haynes. Remember Tim from last year?
Of course.
Yeah. So they're both back together as the presenting. They'll be presenting the milk out of the
To the
cooler.
winner.
Yes.
Okay. And then, do you have any other milk facts about what I just drank?
Yes. It's as much as 10 cups of raw spinach
10
as
cups of raw spinach.
protein.
Yep.
Protein, I think. 2 hard-boiled eggs, so as much potassium. No, as much potassium as a banana, and as much carbohydrates as what would be in hard-boiled eggs that would be good? folate? Is that something?
How many of these have we done?
Vitamin A. Is it vitamin A?
How many of these have we done?
No, is it
It's
in the notes?
vitamin A spinach,
No, that's not right. I think protein is the
protein
spinach.
of
isn't it?
hard-boiled eggs.
I think protein is the spinach. It is vitamin A. See, I told you. I got it
For
right.
what?
Sorry if I popped the volume there, Jordan. I got excited because I actually got this right. I don't
I should hope. You've had to read it 34
I don't want to
times.
be the guy that'd be like, "Hey, Jake, so it's actually blah 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 blah." Like I want to have it up here.
Well, that's not working out too well for
Well,
you.
it's a work in progress a little bit. I'm
Okay.
developing.
All right.
That's all. We got fired and then had a 6-month non-compete. I had to rediscover myself as a person and as a dad. It was hard.
We had
I'm
somebody that
recovering.
wanted to hire us and give us a 2-year non-compete, by the way. 2-year non-compete. What world were they living in?
I saw that and I was like, "What?
2 years.
This is not what we
Our
talked
own
about.
significant others don't even have on us a 2-year
It's
non-compete.
not what we talked about. Winnersdrinkmilk.com for the milk facts.
You read the milk facts in terms of the chocolate milk? You've been
I
hard.
did. I just
You've
I
confused
just said
the hell out of
vitamin A.
Let me show you how you really read these.
Okay.
Instead of confusing everybody to death, okay? Folks, did you know that I just enjoyed this chocolate milk, which is a great post-workout beverage? And you want to know why it's a great post-workout beverage? Not only because it's refreshing and tastes fabulous, but did you know that right here, this has as much calcium as 10 cups, that's correct, as much calcium as 10 cups of raw spinach.
That's what it is, calcium.
As much
Yeah.
potassium as a
what I said.
banana. As I had said earlier, as much potassium as a banana, and as much vitamin A as
2 hard-boiled eggs.
2 hard-boiled
Didn't even
eggs.
need the notes.
That is correct.
You're
Way
welcome.
Way to go. Aren't you just
You're welcome.
genius over there?
Well, what are you doing?
I'm throwing around the milk
I
facts.
still need this as a crutch.
Clearly. For show 35.
We just mentioned him. Trey Lance is my winner of the week.
Okay.
Great story. You know, he grew up in Minnesota and was like this unbelievable prep player in Minnesota and wanted to go to Minnesota. And they're like, well, yeah, you can come here, but we want you to play receiver. And he's like, well, no, I'm a quarterback. And that happened with all these other Power 5 schools. So North Dakota State, which is basically a Power 5 school with as good as they've been, swoops in and says, hey, you can come play quarterback here. So what does Lance do? He goes to North Dakota State, actually took a red shirt. 2019 as a freshman is the Offensive Player of the Year, the National Championship MVP, a national champion, and the best player on that level as a freshman. Redshirt freshman, but
Right.
still. And now he's the number 3 pick in the draft. So I love the fact that he goes back to everybody, let's say you're Minnesota and you're PJ Fleck or whatever, and be like, hey, how you like me now?
Right.
I mean, as somebody that
That's
spent
cool.
his life being doubted and then exceeded those expectations, I love stories like that. I really connect with it because personally, I feel it mirrors my rise.
I was going to give, Derek, my Winners Drink Milk winner of the week to Paye Award, Patricio Award, who finally broke through after knocking on the door, got his first career IndyCar win, and likely what is going to be the first of many of them on the Oval in Texas in race number 2 in a deal that he had with Zach Brown, the president of McLaren. That means that he now gets to test a Formula One ride later and try to get his super license in order to maybe make that transition to Formula One. But IndyCar would love to see him stay within IndyCar because this guy is a rising star and a big-time personality. But I think Paye Award would be okay with this, and I'll do so kind of in an honorary capacity. Go with Bobby Unser.
Yeah.
In tribute to the loss of a fabulous, fabulous ambassador for the sport of racing and somebody who has been an icon throughout central Indiana. And as I said, kind of everybody's favorite uncle, literally. Bobby Unser would be my American Dairy Association of Indiana Winners Drink Milk winner of the
I
week.
had Paddle last week because he was on pole and P4, I think. So
Yeah.
we actually gave it to him last week. But
Heck of a
we
talent,
say
man.
that one of the rising stars that everyone in that paddock is a young rising star.
Yeah, you're
now.
right.
I mean, it's incredible. The amount of young talent in IndyCar, it's unbelievable right now.
You know, Mac Engel, who writes for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, had an interesting column from Texas. I mean, Mac is an Indianapolis native. We grew up together. But saying that, and I agree with Mac, IndyCar should really make an effort to try to get on to, like Netflix. Formula One is seeing an uptick in interest level in the U.S., Derek, just based on a Netflix show.
Yeah.
Because the influencers are watching Netflix and talking about it and whatever else, and that's getting people going. IndyCar needs to find a way to get the Paye Awards. I mean, you know, and Rossi's a fascinating guy, and Colton Herta is an unbelievable young talent. Now, you know, Renus VK is a good young talent. Somehow to get the stories of these guys chronicled on a soap opera level basis on Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, you know, whatever it might be, right?
We'll
getting
save
out there.
and we'll save the 500 talk for later. We still have a Grand Prix, of course, to get to and all of that for the month of May. But every single year, you and I kind of go through and we make brackets of how many drivers can win the race.
That's right.
And 15 years ago, you had 7 to 9 probably that realistically could win the race. 10 to 12 years ago, or you probably had more like 12, 13. I think this year you probably got like 20 drivers that can actually realistically win that race, and it's incredible to think that how far we've come.
Yeah, this year will be very competitive.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
More features to get to. Bite or Bold Bleep from the shop. Also, love HVAC's Love That Play to talk about, and my in-laws are in town.
Oh, did they bring the dog?
They did not bring Eddie.
Eddie?
They flew. Yeah.
What? Eddie doesn't fly?
Well, Eddie got boarded.
He got bored?
Boarded.
Oh, where's he
They had to board
staying?
the dog. I'm not sure. It's in the mountains of Vermont, so I think they basically hike over to their next door neighbor like 5 miles away and knock on the door and say, "Hey, can you take him in?" I think that's how it works. I'm not sure.
Right.
They have a lantern.
Okay.
I hope they don't watch this.
Eddie's
They probably
allowed
won't.
Eddie's allowed to stay there just as long as he doesn't mess with the farmer's daughter, right? That's pretty much how it works.
All right, that's enough. My
Just
in-laws
saying.
that we're talking about. We've got to keep things appropriate. It's Query and Schultz,
Okay.
ISC Sports Network. We'll get that in post, Jordan. So mark that.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
You can't get enough of them.
You can't get enough of us. Good one, J-Man.
This is the worst scandal. This might
This
even
is
be.
worse than steroid. Not so fast.
Are you going to watch the XFL?
I'll probably watch a little bit of it.
You want to go through and pick some games?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I really don't.
Indiana dairy farmers provide us with safe, pure foods for our tables. A responsibility that takes intuition, resolve, and determination to make sure their milk is good for you and delicious to taste. Their connection with our community runs deep, passed down through the generations, ensuring that milk is always available at your store. It's not easy being a dairy farmer, but the rewards have special meaning when you can feed Indiana's families every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
Oh my God!
We are ripping fast today.
And how hard can it be, right?
These are now selling for about $3,500. So we're back to our old ways of pulling rocks.
Act like idiots on camera, open cards, and talk about the hobby.
Welcome back to Query and Schultz here on ISC Sports Network. Thanks to our crew here, Greg Rakestraw running the cameras today, which is new for Rake. Jordan Shue also here.
He's running the cameras.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Greg's just sitting back there.
No, he's literally running the cameras.
Is he really?
There's some
they on autopilot?
autopilotness of them, but he had to set them up and get them set. See?
Okay,
There's
yeah.
Greg's thumb to prove
Okay.
that he's here.
Okay.
So thanks to our crew doing a great job as always. And part of our crew as well, at least as a sponsorship. I mean, we look at them as part of our crew, right? Love
Oh, they're
Heating and
part of the
Cooling.
family,
They're
of
the
course.
best. They've been around for over 100 years, servicing Indiana families since 1920. They've been to my house as well with a new HVAC system that I've had basically zero problems with in the 7 years that I've owned the home. Love-HVAC.com, 353-2141 if you want to.
How do you last over 100 years in a family? I remember taking a business class, one business class I took in my life in college, and they said, listen, the problem with family businesses, oftentimes by the time you get to the third generation, things start to dip a little bit in terms of the way things are running, not with Love Heating and Air Conditioning. Fourth generation, and again, over 100 years, love-hvac.com. Integrity, quality of product, knowledge of that product, great prices, and commitment to maintenance, 24-hour on-call maintenance. That's what you get with Love Heating and Air
It's not like the Quarry family where, your grandpa obviously, set the foundation, your dad, steel worker,
Yep.
you created a great life for you guys, and then a little bit of a dip to Jake Quarry. Little bit of a dip.
You think so?
Right after that, yeah. So all families are
My dad
different
was a
when it
steel
comes to that.
salesman, O'Neill
That's right.
Steel,
Worked in the steel business.
the metals company.
And you ended up being a Steelers fan because of it, right?
That is
And you
correct.
were a front runner.
That is correct.
So both of those things. Not a specific play, but I just thought Domas going for a triple-double and a half.
That is totally fair. No argument here.
Unbelievable. And 20-plus points, too. That's first
Derek,
time in a quarter century.
How about
that's
having
happened.
14 assists?
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be
Insane.
close to a career high of assists for him. I realize that the way, he's an excellent low post passer, but 14 assists, no joke.
And that was essentially open gym, but still, it technically was an NBA game. And to do that in an NBA game is just obscene.
It bums me out, the Pacers' streak of winning seasons at home.
That was
is over
important
with.
to you.
It
Yeah,
was,
you'd bring
man.
that up every year, I remember.
It's the longest streak in the league.
I know, yeah. 1990, right, was the last
longest
time?
streak in the league.
Well, my favorite Pacers stat is still alive and will stay alive this year.
Most years without a top 10 pick.
Not top 10 because they've drafted 10th a couple of times. A single-digit
Paul George was
draft
10th,
pick.
wasn't
Yep.
he?
And I think like Eric Dampier or somebody like
That
that
might
was
be right.
10th as well. Single-digit draft pick has not happened since George McLeod, 1989.
I remember George McCullough. Man, there were not a lot of swing and misses there in the draft, but George McCloud was one of them.
Yeah, and who was that white dude that was kind of a stiff? Not Haskin, who...
That's who you're thinking of, Scott Haskin?
No, wasn't there another guy?
Rick Smits turned out to be a decent player.
Piatkowski.
Eric Piatkowski.
They traded him, right? So did he ever end up playing as a Pacer?
No, he was a draft day trade.
Maybe I was thinking of Haskin then. But didn't he just did he have an injury issue or something?
Yeah, Scott Haskin had
He only played 1 year, right?
He had a back issue.
Yeah.
He was I believe, the Pac-10 Player of the Year.
Well, I think there's this feeling that the Pacers...
Okay, Scott Haskin was drafted and mocked unmercifully. And I'm not saying this because they're both big white guys. But in terms of his role, it was obviously, almost a decade later. But he was envisioned of being the kind of a player that Jeff Foster was.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that people get too transfixed, Derek, on can this guy score? Well, I've talked to people in terms of the great Pacer teams of the mid-'90s and into the team that went to the finals in 2000. I've talked to people as close to the architecture of that team as you can get about the building of those teams that said the most critical piece in all of that was Dale Davis.
Yeah. I mean, one of them's basically your father-in-law.
So
by common law, so.
I'm not saying any names of who said these things.
Mm.
And Dale Davis was not a scorer, right? He was a defensive player and a rebounder. But once he was cemented in there, then everything else that they wanted to do, he was the piece that allowed that to happen.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Scott Haskin would have been that guy, but because he was not a dynamic scorer, people thought that meant that he could not have been a great player.
It's interesting because you go back and you look. I thought you were going to mention Stipo. The Pacers draft history really is there aren't a lot of guys where you say, oh, my God, that was terrible.
One thing that I have I don't have many skill sets. Indy 500 winners, Heisman winners,
Yeah.
and an era of Pacers drafts. I'm pretty good. Give me a year.
83.
83. Stipo, second
Yeah.
overall.
Yeah. Who was a good player and was also slowed down by injuries, but was like not a star player. He was
Right.
drafted second, so maybe you think he'd been better than
No,
that.
he was a solid NBA player.
But he was a good NBA
They were
player.
terrible.
Yeah. Vern Fleming was a first-round
84.
pick of theirs, a good player. Wayman Tisdale had a great career, the late, great Wayman Tisdale. Chuck Person had a really nice, long
Reggie.
career. Rick Smits,
Smits.
Reggie Miller.
McLeod's 89, right?
Yeah. I mean, and when you get to 89 to now, they're not drafting fifth or something like
Right.
that. So I guess the Pacers haven't had a lot of chances to have
You know who
high-profile busts.
You know who I've always felt is the most underrated Pacer player of the last 25 years?
I don't know if he is of the last 25
Although
years.
it's hard to
but,
say. You know what's weird? I say of the last 25, the 94, 95 years were more than 25 years ago.
a guy that people never appreciated
So last 30 years.
recently, who I think never always got a raw deal, in fact was over-criticized, was George Hill. But that's
That's
just
fair.
my personal pick.
Are
Are you going to say Derek McKee?
you getting a message?
Sorry, I don't know what that was. Usually I mute my computer.
Derek McKee, yes, that is correct. He's a great defender. He could score, and he didn't have to have stuff going through him. Is that an Apple Watch? Or is that a knockoff?
Yeah, I got a...
What do you got going on here?
Oh, my dentist bill was taken care of good.
Who paid that?
Well, I did, but I wanted a receipt on all that. I actually did through my wife's
I paid-
HSA because I don't
okay.
have health insurance. I'm on her health insurance.
I know we're up against it here. I just want to throw this in. I had one medical bill that went to collection. So apparently,
From your heart attack?
Okay, so when I went to the hospital that I went to is within the network of my insurance, which is good because when you have one of your main cardiovascular arteries blocked, folks, I want to make sure you know, when you have 100% blockage in your heart and it's the Widowmaker and the clock is ticking on your ticker, absolutely make sure you do the most important thing you can think of, and that is go to the hospital that is within your insurance
make sure.
network, right?
Yeah, forget that you're dying.
Right.
Yep.
So I go to the hospital, and lo and behold, thank goodness it's within my network. But somehow or another, and believe me, once they determine that you're having a heart attack, then all of a sudden everybody that's hanging out in the break room is in there, right? And trust me, they're all sending invoices. 3 of the doctors that were in the ER that took care of me, not, by the way, not Dr. Mottman, who is a scholar and a hero, but 3 of them, even though they work within a building in my network, they themselves are contractors that are not within my network. So that went to a collection agency because the insurance didn't pay that. Of course, I don't know any of this, right? And then all of a sudden I get a bill from this collection agency. So finally, I go back and forth, settle it. And so I send my payment. And I said, now, can you email me the receipt? I'm sorry, we can't do that. Can you give me a confirmation number of payment? We don't do that until the entire bill has been settled. And I said, when you guys determined that I owed you money, you had 9 guys standing out in the front yard with signs. And now all of a sudden, that I've paid it, I can't get a hold of anybody.
It's a great country we live in when it comes to that, isn't it? The insurance business. It's wonderful.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Everybody who saved my life is entitled to every dollar that they claim. No doubt about it.
I want to picture that conversation that you had because
She said to me this, I think you're being a little rude.
I've heard you be more than a little rude. For those that don't know, during our radio days, Jake sat in one studio and my office was outside of the studio. We had like a little side office or whatever, and I'd leave my door open because people come in and bother me with crap all the time. Nobody ever bothered you. Because I was always, hey, is Jake here? I don't know. Walk 5 feet and go see if he's here.
How testy you get with this.
But you
get so angry over that.
You would basically come in, and there are 2 things that you would do that I would know right away. I would know when you were there because there were YouTube news people blooper reels
the best. Yeah, those are
on
great.
full volume that you would play.
Those are always fun.
And I knew when it was bill day in the Query household, and you had to call or booking flights for IndyCar. When you had to call customer service reps, and those conversations made me extremely there were a couple times I took my laptop in the break room because I was like, I'm uncomfortable listening to Jake interact with this person on the phone.
Believe now. Here's as Paul Harvey says. Now the rest of the story. Derek Schultz, who I worked alongside, folks, for nearly a decade, and it wasn't until I almost died, but at one point Derek finally made a confession to me. He said, Jake, there are a lot of things about you that I don't necessarily admire, but one of them I do that I wish I had was your ability to be very firm when it comes to making sure that you're getting clarity with customer
You're taking
service.
that a little bit out of context. My point was you have that in your arsenal. Like, that is your fastball. I don't have that fastball. I would like to be able to use that when warranted. The problem is that every time you call these customer service reps, it's all heat. It's all 4-seam right over the middle. Like, that's all that you throw.
Hey,
you don't throw any other
Derek,
pitch.
you got to brush them off the plate. You got to let them know you're there.
Hi, it's Carl. It's the American Express. Hi, Carl. How hard is your job? Can you just answer that question for me? Like, how hard is it? Sorry, sir. What are you talking about? Like, you are immediately like jump right into it. Like, not hi. How are you?
You got to
like,
set the tone.
Oh my
you got to set the tone, buddy. You got to be a tone setter. Don't let there be any secret about it. I'm
awful.
coming and I'm coming hard.
Oh,
You can mess around a lot of people. Ain't gonna be me.
I do not miss that. I'll tell you that.
Okay.
It'd be extremely uncomfortable.
Well, guess what? Usually it turns out working out.
It does. You get what you want at the end of the day, man. At what cost, though?
Just looking for answers.
Buy it or bold belief coming your way next, and we will wrap up the show as we continue here. Query and Schultz, ISC Sports Network.
Indiana dairy farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching, barn needs cleaning. tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do, from Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
We're a different breed, aren't we? While others rest, we choose to work. Where others are content, we stay hungry. They may not see us coming, but we know exactly where we're going. You won't rest until you succeed. Neither will we.
Your life is on the go. Now your viewing habits can be on the go. With the ISC Sports Network app, your team is at your fingertips. You can download years' worth of content from the ISC Sports Network library. High school, college, special events, weekly and monthly shows, wherever you find your favorite app. And you can always find out more information at iscsportsnetwork.com.
Welcome back to this episode 34. Is that right, Derek?
Yeah, Charles Oakley episode.
Yeah.
We're doing only Knicks players.
Mel Daniels.
Okay, fine. We could do it. I don't know if Mel was quite on Oak's level, but sure.
Okay. The Mel Daniels version of Query and Schultz.
The late,
and
great Mel Daniels. I want people to
best.
know that I'm kidding.
It is time for Biter Bull Schultz, brought to you by the shop Indy 920 Broad Ripple Avenue. And what better time than right now to go out and load up on your Indy 500 gear, because they have fantastic shirts. I mean, whether
The
we're
best.
talking about the wing and
Yeah.
wheel, or, you know, they've got upwards now of like up to like 1990 or 91, I think they're up to, in terms of the old retro shirts, hats, you name it. The shop Indy 920 Broad Ripple Avenue, or in Clay Terrace, or of course, as always, at theshopindy.com. Derek makes a statement, and then we say whether we buy it or we consider it to be Bull Schultz.
Yep, that's the part that I usually say, but sure. Go ahead and take that from me. Justin Fields will end up being, this is a very low bar, will end up being the best quarterback in Chicago Bears history. Buy it or bull bleep. Let's take the Super Bowl era history, because there might be a player in like 1908 that was really good for the Bears.
Yeah, I mean,
whenever they were
they've
founded.
had a Super Bowl, or I mean, a Hall of Fame quarterback. But didn't Sid Luckman play for the Bears?
Sure. Yeah. I'm getting the thumbs up
Sid
from
Luckman's
Greg.
a Hall of Fame quarterback for the Bears.
Okay.
I
who
think
would be their greatest of the Super? I'm dead
I think
serious.
Justin
Jake.
Fields is very talented. I think he is going to underperform.
Is Jay Cutler? I'm dead serious. Is Jay Cutler the best quarterback of the Super Bowl era for the Bears?
I mean, you'd have to say McMahon. He won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it, but Derek, listen. McMahon did have some moments. I mean, that I realize that in the 85 season, yes, you are correct. I mean, you know, there are a lot of guys that you could say, well, you could have put any quarterback in that situation and they would have won a Super Bowl, but there have been other quarterbacks who've had their shot to do that in Chicago that didn't get it done. Now, they didn't have that defense of Walter Payton and Willie Gault and Dennis Gentry or Dennis McKinnon, I guess it was, et cetera. But Cutler's up there. I mean,
Yeah.
how many Pro Bowl quarterbacks have they had?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Well, they had one. Didn't
McMahon
Eric
won in
Kramer?
85.
Eric Kramer had a pretty good year there.
I think like 93
Yeah,
or
he
something
had
like
he
that.
had kind of
Yeah.
a second lease.
I think he got
for a year or
paid
two.
big time from them. And Cutler, they went to the NFC Championship one of those years with Cutler, if I'm not mistaken.
That may be right.
2010.
Cutler's not a bad player. He just has such an unlikable look.
Yeah. But I don't think that's a very high bar. Yeah, you know what? I'll say yes. Because I think Fields is going to be a very good player.
Okay.
So I think he'll end up being the best quarterback in the Bears' modern history.
I think I'll probably be totally wrong in this, and if it happens, I think a lot of it is just based on the circumstances in which he's going to be thrown into, but I think Fields will underperform.
I saw a thread about this, and full disclosure, this is not something that I really follow. I know a little bit about it, but Nick Yeoman had a thread about it, or was responding to a tweet about it, and I don't know if he won a race this weekend or something that happened in F1, But somebody was asking, is Lewis Hamilton the greatest race car driver of all time? So I was like, I'll throw that in there, buy it or bull bleep. You know a little bit more about it than I do. But it was interesting. I jumped into the replies of that comment, and people were saying, Jim Clark and A.J. Foyt and all kinds of people.
I think the greatest race car driver of all time has to be defined on somebody who was competitive at every level and discipline in which they raced.
That's what a lot of people were saying. And they said, no offense to Hamilton, but he's only ever done F1.
Correct. And for that reason, it would be Mario Andretti or A.J. Foyt. Jimmy Clark's absolutely hitting. I mean, he's Triple Crown winner, but it's one of those three. Juan Manuel Fangio's way up there, but you don't have the ovals, to my knowledge. Came here, took a few laps, didn't make a qualifying attempt, but it's one of those three.
Because somebody was mentioning that I guess there was a driver recently that they put, I don't know if he was injured or what, they put into Hamilton's car, and he either won or, kind of like a middle-tier guy, and everybody's like, see, when you have this equipment and machinery.
Formula One is so ingenuity-based, as it was back in the day when, when innovation in the automobile went hand-in-hand in terms of racing, and that was a big part of it. But still, for guys to be able to – the ultimate test is guys that were able to get into different disciplines and run on road and street courses or on ovals in a stock car and an open-wheel car and, whatever it might be. And that's where Mario Andretti separates himself along with – I mean, when A.J. Foyt went and won Daytona, I mean, he's still running in an oval, but it's in a totally different car. Mario Andretti – is a Formula One world champion, so he's running road and streets. He's winning Indy. He's winning a little of everything.
And more recently, even though I don't think you'd argue that either of those guys are the greatest of all time, but people that did it in multiple disciplines, like Tony Stewart or Montoya.
Stewart's absolutely unbelievable. Montoya, Jacques Villeneuve is. I'll tell you, Derek, only because of where racing in North America ranks versus 40 years ago. But Scott Dixon was 20 laps over the weekend from tying Mario Andretti for second most all-time open-wheel wins in North America.
Yeah.
And he's still done it on road, streets, and ovals.
Yeah, and it's not just, beating up on the fields that were there in 05 and 08. It's now the most competitive that it's ever been, and he's still winning consistently.
Correct.
So, yeah, I agree. Final thing. I don't know how you do this. NBA teams should be punished for clearly tanking like what the Thunder are doing. Problem is, how do you prove that they're tanking?
It worked out for Philly, didn't it? Trust the process.
Well, Phoenix, and I don't know if Phoenix was necessarily tanking, but they got a bunch of low picks and working out, or high picks.
I don't know how you prove it either. So I'll say no, it's bull, Schultz.
Yeah, me too. Because
by the way,
even if you want to play young players, you got to let teams.
You know what just dawned on me?
What?
3 of the biggest legends in Indiana sports of the last 30 years are all named Bobby. Right?
Bobby Slick Leonard, Bobby Unser.
Bobby Knight.
Oh, yeah. I never liked, because Coach didn't like being called Bobby, I never called him Bobby.
No, I understand.
That was much more of a
put these two side by side.
I think non-Indiana people called Bob Knight Bobby Knight far more than Indiana people called him Bobby Knight.
I would agree with that. That's
because I remember when I told people I was going to IU, and it was my senior year of high school was the year that he got fired. Everybody was saying, "Oh, Bobby Knight," because I was in Connecticut, and that's what everybody referred to him as. But I always called him Bob or Sir or Coach.
Whoops, I almost spilled our...
I know. Try not to hurt our set here. So there's Bobby and Bobby.
That's right.
Worked out well.
And Sage.
We have to wrap up the show now. You know that,
Yeah,
right?
I know. What are you doing? Are you texting
I got another alert. There's somebody at my front door. I don't know who that would be.
Oh,
I think everybody's home.
Is that the ring deal?
Yeah.
Well, who is it? You better check. Make sure.
I'll check in a little bit here. It goes onto a cloud, and I can go back and look at.
Well, that's going to do a lot of good if somebody's already broken in.
Well,
it's not like they're hanging
I wake
around.
Up in the morning, I have a back camera, and I always check to see, and it's always the same possum that trips my camera.
Well, the good news is if somebody's breaking into your house, you actually get a little extra time to catch them because they want to just get in and out, but they stop to admire that chateau kitchen.
That's right.
They're in there for a while.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, I just hope they don't steal all my Patrick Ewing starting lineup figurines.
Yeah, okay. Sure.
Thanks to Jake Morris, Jordan Shue, Greg Rakestraw for helping us out today. Thanks to you for tuning in, as always, to Corey and Schultz and all of our sponsors.
You know that one fellow's last name is Shue, he said?
Yeah.
Rakestraw barefoot.
He got Rake's lounging. You know, this is his off. He doesn't have much of an
Find it
off season.
uncomfortable.
This is kind of his off season right now, for a little bit, where he's not doing a game every single night.
Okay, fair enough.
I know you don't like it. You want me to come in barefoot one day?
No, sir. Nope. Not going to happen. I will
I'm going to spare everybody that.
You think I'm bad with customer service, folks? You ought to see what I'm like with people bare feet.
Yeah. Well, if you've never seen Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, then
Good.
you'll never know. We'll see you next time. It's Corey and Schultz, ISC Sports.
Roger Brown
Bye.
episode next.